If you're a beginner or an intermediate guitar player, there's no doubt that you've struggled with being able to fret the shapes of fingering patterns necessary for creating many of your chord types both in open position and during your study of the various bar chords. Now, this is something that I've worked on with hundreds of guitar students, and I've discovered a solution that is extremely helpful for any guitarist who is struggling with perfecting chord fingerings on the guitar neck. So in this episode of the Guitar Blog Insider, I'm going to cover some ways for helping you end the struggle involved with fretting chords. Well, before we get started into this lesson, I need to state up front here that the open or first position, where 90% of beginner students start learning how to play in, is in fact one of the most challenging regions of the whole guitar neck to start working within. Not only are the frets spaced wider apart here than at any other place on the whole guitar neck, in our open first position, we've also got an issue with how the strings are rolling over the nut down here. And the problem with that area is it causes the action at this point of the neck to be, well, by the way, action just means how easy or how hard the strings are to depress, and of course that changes across the neck, but the action here is basically at one of the most demanding points of tension on the guitar's fingerboard. So it makes this region of the neck really lousy for beginners to start learning and understanding how to fret out their chords. String fret spacing is really wide, and the tension is really high with the way the strings are rolling over the nut. So not a great place to start learning your chords in. However, there's a way around this. Well, over my years of teaching guitar, I found that an absolutely fantastic way to get around the string height and the string tension and the wide fret spacing of trying to help my students, especially my students with smaller hands and fingers, is to take a capo and basically just get the student to learn their basic chords, open chords, bar chords, up higher on the guitar neck. And you just have to place the capo maybe in the middle of the guitar neck. And now this capo trick is actually giving you a lot of benefits, including bringing the student up into a region of the fingerboard where the frets are much closer together than they are, down at the nut. And also, the other thing that's really great is it makes it feel like night and day compared to how high the action is, how high the strings are riding up off the fretboard as compared to the open position. When you clamp a capo down, it really brings those guitar strings quite close onto the face of the guitar fingerboard here. So the benefits of using a capo, maybe up around the middle of the neck here, that's usually where I get my students to do it, is that the tension of the strings goes way down and we can work in the middle of the neck where the frets are closer together, and you get your training up on creating your chord shapes, and then as you get pretty decent and the sound is getting clearer, you can start dropping that capo down, taking it further and further down the neck until eventually, you're around second and first frets. And then, after that period is over, you can just get rid of it and just start working on them in the open position, and your skills will be up, your technique will be up higher, you'll get some calluses starting to form, especially great for the beginner students. And it's a way of doing it also that brings down the stress levels, and especially with adults. I found over teaching, many years with adults, they tend to have a little higher stress levels than, young students do. I got a student who's maybe 15 or 14, they tend to have very low stress levels with guitar. But you get somebody who's maybe 45 years old, 50 years old, the stress level is higher because they feel, I'm an adult, I should know how to do this easier, it should be easier for me. And also there's a really big factor there for adults on that they have a perspective in their mind of where they want to get to and where they should be getting to. They're very concerned about progress and things like that. Younger students, they tend not to be as concerned about those things. So, you factor it all in, and man, this capo trick is gold when you're working with adults. And it's fantastic too when you're working with younger students as well. Well, let's get things started by placing a capo up at the 5th fret of the guitar neck. We're going to begin by running through a few of the popular open position chords that often cause new guitarists some trouble. See, early on when a new guitarist is practicing, the basic chords, played down to the 1st through 3rd frets can be a real challenge for them to fret, so that, they're going to sound clear. However, if we are up higher on the neck practicing these same chords between, let's say, 6th 6th and 8th frets there, the fret span is significantly shorter. So the stretch that's required between the 1st to 3rd fingers, let's say, which is, that group of fingers there, that's the majority of your chords in the open position are getting fretted with those 3 fingers. So the span or the stretch is not as challenging as it is when you're practicing those same chords down around 1st to 3rd frets, just because the spacing is so much smaller up here. Now, another practical bonus with all this that you'll really notice right away, especially if you're teaching, yourself and you've got students of your own and you try using this system, the thing that you're going to notice is that it's so much easier to press down for your students. And if you're doing this yourself at home, you're going to find it's a lot easier to press down onto the guitar strings due to how the capo brings the guitar strings down so much closer into the face of the guitar neck here. So, the thing is that we got to run through some of this stuff together so you start really understanding what's happening with this system and how beneficial it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a collection of chords and we're going to start running through them up here in this middle portion of the neck with the capo. All right, so getting started, I want to go through a chord that a number of new students to the guitar will find somewhat challenging. It's the open position D minor chord. Now, the span across the 1st to 3rd frets in a 1st or open position can be a real challenge for most guitar players, especially new players just starting out, and especially for players who have small hands. But when you move this chord up into the middle of the neck and use the capo to bring the strings down so close to the face of the guitar neck, the technique of creating this chord becomes a lot easier. The fret span itself is just so much more manageable for new students. That D minor chord becomes a lot easier to play when you bring this capo into the mix and you try it in the middle of the neck here. Now, another chord that can be a real challenge is the upper 4-string F major chord. This rather small chord voicing here, can actually be especially challenging due to the 2-string bar that has to occur across the upper 2 guitar strings there. But with the capo in the middle of the neck, it's a lot easier to do than, when you're trying to practice it way down low in the 1st position there. And, one of the things that's going to be a big challenge on this chord, as with some of the other chords where you have to have good fretting in the low end of the chord, but yet have strings ringing out on top, is the knuckle. That's the last knuckle on your finger, right by the fingernail there, that knuckle coming, with the curve that it requires to have the tip of the finger into the guitar string. That's very difficult to do in the early days of playing. You have to have a little bit of strength on the hand that builds there to keep the tips of the fingers on the guitar strings, and at the same time, while those are arched up, you've got to have that good bar going on the top 2 guitar strings. So there's 2 different elements happening there with the hand that have to be attended to. It makes that chord quite challenging. Now, another area, of course, that's really challenging for new students and even intermediate students is bar chording. So, when you have something like maybe a B major chord, this chord, for instance, it's a real challenge one here because, you have the index finger playing down low on that fifth guitar string, while the 3rd finger has to lay flat and create the bar. So that knuckle, that's right there off of the fingernail, that last knuckle of the finger, it has to be very well, curved in so that the pad of the finger is laying quite flat to cover the 4th and the 3rd and the 2nd strings. This chord can be extremely tough to perform. A lot of people just refer to this chord type as the 5th string root major bar chord because it's movable. You can move it anywhere you want. And, the thing is that with a capo used in the middle of the neck, this B major here becomes a lot easier to fret out and learn. Same thing when you're dealing with the large 6-string root major bar chord as well. Another very challenging one, even if you're dealing with minor. When you deal with major and minor chords, there's a lot of barring that has to take place with that index finger, and then you have a few other fingers that have to be well arched again from that last knuckle of the finger, so the very tip of the finger is at that guitar string and really perfect way. Now, this chord, it does show up quite often in a lot of songs as an F, barred in 1st position. This is incredibly challenging for most new students on guitar, even for a lot of intermediate players. That is a very tough chord to make down there. You can practice it, however, with this capo system, more in the middle of the guitar neck like this, and it is easier, again, because those strings are so close down to the face of the guitar neck, and, you just have the closer, fret spacing to help you with with the reach that you need into each of the tones. And that goes for both the major and the minor as well. So, this trick of using the capo in the middle of the neck to help you with different chord types, it's really fantastic. And it's great if you're a student, still studying and trying to build up your skills. And it's also really good if you're a guitar teacher and you need a way to help your guitar students get better at fretting out a lot of these chords in the early days. It's just a really fantastic way to go about developing your chords on the guitar fingerboard. Well, learning any type of chord shape can be made a lot easier by just placing a capo in and around the middle of the neck. It helps new students and also intermediate players become much better acquainted with developing their chord fingerings and with developing their ability to stretch out and be able to reach all the notes that you need, and even more so if the student has small hands. And, when it comes to the study of bar chords, this capo trick is fantastic. It's going to offer students who are, having in, those very early stages of bar chord practice a lot of trouble, and it's going to give you a chance to begin perfecting those bar chord techniques. And the best part of all of this is that it won't take any student too long to be able to begin, mastering the shapes and using the shapes with clarity, and then beginning to drop that capo down the neck so that your fret span is getting wider. And then eventually you just, come to the point you don't need the capo anymore, and you'll be able to perform those difficult patterns of chord types all the way across the entire span of the guitar fingerboard. So if you're having trouble making any kind of chord pattern on guitar, it doesn't matter what the chord is, give this capo trick a try. It is amazing. And I can guarantee you that it's going to make a difference for all of the chords that you're having technique problems with. Also, if you're a guitar teacher and you've never tried using this with your own students, by all means, give it a whirl. You're going to find out that it's absolutely fantastic. Your students are going to love you for it. Well, I'd like to end the discussion by saying thanks for joining me. I hope this capo trick is really going to help you out. If you want to learn more, though, about what I do as an online guitar teacher, then head over to my website at creativeguitarstudio.com and sign up for your free lifetime membership. When you want more, you can always upgrade to either a basic or a premium lesson package and start studying all the guitar courses I've organized for the members of my website. Also, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are on all this capo stuff in the comments section below. If you've used it before, maybe you have a few tips you can suggest, maybe something I missed. If you have another technique, if you're a guitar teacher that you want to add on, by all means, say something in the comments section. That would be fantastic to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks again, and I'll catch up with you next week for another episode of the Guitar Blog Insider. Hi everybody, Andrew Wasson here from CreativeGuitarStudio.com. I've been a professional guitarist for over 25 years now, and I've been teaching guitar for even longer than that. But today I want to talk to you about your current situation by discussing the study of guitar and the time that you have available to put into it. If you're like most people, you're working a 9-to-5 job and you're working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, that's 160 hours a month. How much free time does that leave you left over to study guitar? Let's say you can maybe fit in an hour or so, around 4 or 5 days in a week when you have the free time. And if that is the case, wouldn't you want to make the most of that 1 hour of study, practicing a highly organized, step-by-step, well-structured guitar curriculum? Without a structured plan, it's pretty easy to waste time. A lot of times it happens by just focusing on playing through a bunch of stuff songs riffs you already know, licks that you're familiar with. But practicing stuff you already know will not make you a better guitar player. You need a constant supply of fresh material. If you practice guitar by just playing stuff you already know, before you realize it, time ticks on, time ticks by, and that valuable period of time that you have every day, it gets lost. If left alone, those hours lost every day turn into lost weeks, lost months, and then eventually lost years of wasted time. You'll still be the same guitar player that you were before because you never challenged yourself. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times in my own studio here. But you can change that. In the valuable time that you do have every day, you can start studying a comprehensive guitar course that'll not only educate you, but it'll turn you into a well-skilled musician. So if you want to learn more, sign up for a free account through my website at creativeguitarstudio.com. The general access membership is absolutely free to join. Come in, get your feet wet, and when you're ready, you can go for the paid membership. What you'll discover in there is the most comprehensive guitar curriculum available online. I've got 25 years experience teaching guitar and have written a well-organized step-by-step guitar course. Head over to my website at creativeguitarstudio.com and sign up for a free membership today. Join the thousands of members worldwide who have already enrolled. There's no need to try learning the guitar on your own. Let me help you become the best guitar player that you can be.